Well, good evening. Coming to you from what seems to be a nightly video. Again, it is March 11th, and I'm giving you the my nightly opinions on the situation in Ukraine. It is the most important thing in our, uh, the last generation, so that I am offering my modest views on the current developments. Again, um, the battlefield situation remains static. Ukrainians are inflicting incredible casualties on the Russian invaders, and although that would seem to be a situation where it wouldn't make sense, but the Ukrainians are fighting with land. They're fighting for their freedom, for their homeland, for their children, for their wives, for their mothers. And this makes them a very, very dangerous enemy for the Russians. I've seen credible reports that say that the Russians have lost over 800 armed vehicles, about 300, a little less than 300 tanks, that they've lost between 5 and 6,000 soldiers, actually killed, which would indicate that there are at least 3 times that number wounded, so 18,000 wounded, and that is almost prohibitive damages for any Western military force. Nonetheless, the Russians have been known to take even greater losses than any Western nation would think possible. Nonetheless, these are significant losses. In fact, if you think about it, the Russians have lost more armor and more soldiers than in 2 weeks than the United States lost in a decade in both Iraq and Afghanistan put together. If this is true, it is indictable. It indicts the entire Russian military establishment, and it indicts the wartime leadership of Vladimir Putin, who has demonstrated to be very much like Hitler. In fact, paradoxically, he claims that he is denazifying Ukraine, but he is in many ways demonstrated parallel thinking to the German invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941. In fact, it's almost eerie. Putin claims that he is there to denazify and neutralize the threat from the Ukrainians. He claims that the Ukrainians were seeking to engage in genocidal struggle against the Russian-speaking areas of the Donbass and to take back the Crimea. These are claims very similar to what Hitler made in 1938 in Czechoslovakia. In fact, Hitler engaged in some false flag operations attacking German communities, or claiming that German communities have been attacked by Czech nationalists. So this is nothing new, Mr. Putin. You are basically lying, and by attacking maternity hospitals in the Ukraine, you've shown yourself to be a monster. I think the entire Western world just has to stop you. You are a pariah, and if the Western world doesn't stop you, you will be much more difficult to stop at a later date. But I think your days are numbered. You may have thought yourself as a grand strategist, and you may have, as many Russians think, you may have mastered strategic moves 3 times before they're made. Nonetheless, I think in this case you have chewed much more than you can manage. And I think the Western world will see your demise. Certainly, the Ukrainians may be dancing at your grave. Whether this is in the short term or whether this is in the medium term, I doubt very much that you will be able to survive this crisis. You have not thought it through. So that the battlefield, as I said, remains static. Russian losses are mounting, as I said. It may be anything between 5 and 6 or 7,000 Russian soldiers dead, which, I mean, by any kind of estimate, you would have 3 times that wounded or incapacitated. So you have about 18 to 20,000 wounded. Those kinds of casualty rates, given the fact that they've only been about 2 weeks of a little over 2 weeks of battle, are prohibitive. I mean, the Russians cannot take Kiev with those kind of casualties. I've seen some intelligence estimates that indicate that there are only about 5,000 to 6,000 troops trying to encircle Kiev. I don't know that that can happen, but nonetheless, let the Russians try. I think this will be the graveyard. So if you're a Russian, a soldier, you might think it twice. You might basically surrender to the Ukrainians. That's a much more likely chance of survival than fighting the Ukrainians on their home turf. So that in itself is, I think, the situation now. As long as the battlefield remains static and Kiev can hold, Putin cannot win. So that I'd like to turn a little bit to the diplomatic scene. And today, Putin actually said that there's some headway being made on the diplomatic negotiations taking place. I think Putin realizes that there is writing on the wall, and if he doesn't negotiate, he cannot win. The Ukrainians have made an overture that makes some sense. That is, they will declare neutrality, but they want some concessions, territorial concessions. I think something can be worked out. I think the Chinese, I'm very interested in working it out. Today I saw a report, very credible report, that the Chinese are worried about their economic standing. Their stock market has turned downward, and this is attributed to their stance in the world crisis, in the Ukrainian crisis. So I think the Chinese, given the fact that they're concerned about money more than anything, will make some overtures and will increase the pressure to bring this conflict to an end. I think, President Belinsky said that the situation in the Ukraine has now entered a strategic tipping point. I think that may be true. And I think that goes to a clear sense that the Ukrainians feel very confident that they will win this war. I think the Ukrainians will win one way or the other. I mean, it could be the conventional victory, or it could be a prolonged asymmetric war with the Russians that they will ultimately win. The former is much more desirable because it will reduce the number of civilians killed, but it will there will be a Ukrainian victory. That's my sense today, March 11th, and we'll see how it all turns out. Thank you very much.